We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
with global pals. It's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about
Everything Theater. Hi, everybody. I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And we talk about all kinds of theater. And today, Shakespeare is our
My favorite, yes.
Yes. And we're really delighted to have Davis McCallum with us. He's the Artistic Director for the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Company. Great to see you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, as people say, so how do you pick? Who do you talk to? You folks announced that you had a new board president, a new board member, which made me take a look. You're a fascinating company. I mean, been around since what, 1987, and you don't really have a home, which is a permanent structure per se. That's coming next season. Give us a little 411 about the company.
We were founded in 1987 by Terry O'Brien and Melissa Stern. And for the first, 37 years of our life, we were in residence at a place called Boscobel House and Gardens, which is down the road from us in Garrison. And we were tenants. And as our company grew and grew, the terms of our lease were such that we needed to have a theater that we could erect every year and take down when the season was over. And about 15 or 20 years ago, we designed and purchased a really state-of-the-art tent theater. And we were performing very happily in that until we were trying to negotiate new terms of our lease at Boscobel, and we were running into some difficulties. And so we started looking around for, kind of a plan B. And then this incredible guy named Chris Davis gifted us a 98-acre piece of property in Garrison overlooking the Hudson River. And that was about 5 years ago now. And since then, we've been on this incredible odyssey. We have decided to build a permanent but still open air theater. We've hired one of the most celebrated architects on the planet, a woman named Jeannie Gang, and she has designed for us a truly unique and beautiful open air theater that will be the first purpose-built LEED Platinum theater in the world, which is the highest level of environmental certification. And right now that theater is under construction and is scheduled to open in time for the following summer season, the summer of 2026. And right now we are all cast and largely designed and ready to start rehearsal for a season of repertory plays. This year we're doing Thornton Wilder's The Matchmaker, which I'm directing, a new production of Comedy of Errors, directed by Ryan Quinn, and the first production of a new musical called Octet by Dave Malloy, the first production to follow the original off-Broadway production, which premiered in 2019. And so we're very, very excited about that. Dave Malloy is the composer and author of Natasha Pierre and the Great Comet of 1812, which ran on Broadway for several years. And he also lives very near us in Beacon. So that's we're also doing a production of Julius Caesar, which is going to play under our tent and then tour to community venues around the Hudson Valley. And it's really a transitional moment. So it's an exciting time for me to be talking to the two of you because it's the last year in our beloved tent. And when audiences come this summer, they'll be able to see this incredible new theater rising on the hill immediately adjacent to where the tent is put up.
So you have a roof.
Oh yeah, we have a roof. I'm going to speak about the new theater because I guess this podcast will live in perpetuity past the moment that we're living in now. But the new theater does have a roof. It's a beautiful timber frame shell. And part of the reason why we think it's going to be one of the greenest theaters ever to be built in the United States is that that timber shell is made out of manufactured wood, out of um, uh, you know,
Like
mass
recycled?
timber. It's made out of smaller pieces of wood that are then glue lammed, that are kind of laminated together to be the structural beam. So it has very little steel in the building. And so it has very low embedded carbon, which is good for climate resiliency and the environment generally. And so the cool thing about it is it's going to seat 450 audience members. Everyone has this great view of the stage. And upstage of where the central playing area is this beautiful lawn that kind of goes out to a bluff that overlooks the Hudson River. So the landscape of the Hudson Valley is really the backdrop, the scenery for our plays. And that works really well with Shakespeare and with other plays where the audience's imagination and the interplay between the actors and the audience is really where the heart of the drama is. When we're thinking about what plays to do at Hudson Valley Shakespeare, we often think if it needs a real set, if it needs a really specific set, it's probably not the right play for us because our plays are about the company of actors and their relationship to the audience and their relationship to this very specific place.
Do you tend to use the same performers year in, year out? You say this company of, of actors.
We do. We have a lot of returning company members year over year. There's not a formalized set group because, of course, we program different plays every year, and sometimes we need specific, skills or ages or types in the company. But our audiences really love to see people returning year after year. And I think part of the reason why they do, and I guess that's true at all theaters, but at ours, I think it's particularly true because we do the plays in rotating reps. So if you came to the theater this summer, you'd see somebody play, Irene Malloy in The Matchmaker, and the next night you'd see her play Luciana in Comedy of Errors, and you'd think, wow, what a great actor, that she can do both those things so brilliantly. And once you've kind of fallen in love with the skill of an actor, it kind of whets your appetite to wonder what else can they do? What are they going to do next? Where is the periphery of what that person can do? And I think that's part of the reason why people love to see company members return.
So speaking on that, what is the schedule like for those actors in terms of when they're rehearsing and performing, sometimes doing both with the repertory structure?
I love that question. I mean, uh, before I answer it, let me just say, like, one of the dreams that I had of a life in the theater was I had a friend a long time ago when I was really, really young who was working at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival in Ashland, where they do rotating rep as well. And he said one of the best things about it was to be in the green room and watch people, playing cards or watching March Madness or whatever on the television in the green room, because you'd see somebody who was dressed as a lizard because they were in Edward Albee's Seascape playing cards with somebody else who was in, an 18th century, wig and stuff because they were in some restoration comedy. And the idea that one company of actors is going to address themselves to a broad and diverse and eclectic group of plays, I just fell in love with that idea. I can't even really explain why. But now to turn to your question, we rehearse this year. We're rehearsing two plays at the top of the season. So most of the company is in The Matchmaker and Comedy of Errors. And so we'll have a big company meeting on Monday, April 13th, and we'll show all the designs for all three plays in the season. And then on Tuesday, the 14th, we'll read through both Comedy of Errors, and The Matchmaker. One in the morning and one in the afternoon. And then from there on out, Matchmaker will rehearse in a primary rehearsal, which means that that director gets to kind of set the schedule for the day on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, Comedy of Errors is in a primary rehearsal. Now, if the Comedy of Errors director is not going to use all of the cast, maybe they're just working on some two-handers, then the Matchmaker director can try and grab some people and rehearse in the other rehearsal space, but they have to work around what the Comedy of Errors team is doing on that day. Then it gets even more complicated because some actors are in only one of those two. And so they have kind of an easy ride at the beginning of the season because they're only doing one play. Everyone else is doing two. But then later in the season, they're going back into rehearsal for octet while everyone else is just performing. So it kind of depends where in the season you have the heaviest, workload. But one thing that we have found to be true is when you're rehearsing multiple plays at once, they inevitably end up talking to each other and kind of informing each other. And I'll be in rehearsal and someone will say, oh, in the other room, we were messing around with something kind of like this, or we had this transition that we pulled off this way. Maybe we're searching for a solution like that too. Or someone will say, that thing you were doing in the other scene in the other play, I'm trying to do something like that in this scene. And they just end up kind of lifting each other. And even if they're very different worlds and very complementary in terms of their style.
Keeping track of all that.
Yeah. People always say, are you going to go on stage? How do you remember which play you're in? Do you ever go on stage and you start saying the lines from the wrong play? And of course, nobody ever does that. But I will say that sometimes you wake up in the middle of the summer and it's just like you're in the washing machine. You don't really know, is it Tuesday? Is it Saturday? What play are we doing tonight? Particularly when you have 3 or 4 plays in the rep, you really have to look at your schedule and think, what am I meant to be doing today? Luckily, we have a really great team of stage managers who keep everybody on track.
You've been there 10 years.
I have.
How has what kind of an evolution has there been under your artistic direction from when you came to this point?
That's a really good question. I have a lot of admiration for my predecessor. I mentioned him earlier, Terry O'Brien. He was the founding artistic director and ran it for 27 years. And I think part of the reason I applied for the job is because I felt like I had a kind of aligned idea of what American Shakespeare could and should be like, which is kind of rigorous and excellent, but I'll make up a word, anti-pretentious, kind of playful, not apologizing for the fact that we're Americans or doing some kind of pale version of what British Shakespeare might be like, but really involved with the audience and really physical and really improvisatory in its playful energy. And I've really tried to carry that forward. That's still kind of the house style, if you will. Another way of saying that is that a lot of our actors have some kind of background in clown training, and I feel like a lot of my favorite actors are clowns in one way or another. They're very courageous, they're very physical, they're very unexpected. They're the kind of actors who, whenever they walk on stage, you just kind of you lean forward because you're not quite sure what they're gonna bring or how they're gonna find their way through the moment. I will say that we've done a kind of a broader range of plays under my tenure, probably. I think when the festival started, it was more exclusively focused on Shakespeare plays. And then at a certain point, they started doing non-Shakespeare plays. And we've also added musicals. We've done a healthy number of world premieres and writers from all different backgrounds. And that's been fun too, just to put Shakespeare alongside a real diversity of American voices and see the kind of intersections between those things. Um, we've also continued to kind of, I don't know what, play jazz a little bit with the structure of the rep. I think under my predecessor, there was a traditional form for the season, at least for the last, say, 10 years, of three plays rehearsing in New York in April and May. And then all three plays would come up in early June to the Hudson Valley. And they would tech right after one after the other. And they would all open, in successive nights almost in mid-June. And I wanted to experiment with other forms that the rep could take so that we had some shows that ran a long, long time and others that could have a shorter, more targeted run, either because we didn't feel like we would sell as many tickets or because we really wanted it with a particular group of people and they were only available at a certain time in the summer. So every year we now change around the way the repertory structure works slightly. And I like that. That's part of the fun of putting the puzzle together every year.
I was saying, you're saying of the three biggies this year is you got one Shakespeare in there. Is that kind of the formula that nowadays you all follow, or is it vary year to year how much Shakespeare's in there?
No, it varies year to year. I mean, last year we did three adaptations of classic plays by living American writers, and one of them was an adaptation of Shakespeare's Henry the Sixth trilogy and Richard the Third. But it wasn't a straight up Shakespeare play, and that was the first time in our 38 years that we haven't done a play that has a recognizable Shakespeare title. And I love all three of those plays, but I got a lot of pushback from our audience. They were like, "Why is there no Shakespeare at the Shakespeare Festival?" And that was a really valid question. This year we have two Shakespeares out of four. In 2026 we had, oh no, in 2016, say, it was a big Shakespeare anniversary. We did three major Shakespeare titles in rep all season long. So it really kind of varies. I feel like, what do I want to say? Like, I don't really like a formula. I want to make it up every year based on what I feel is happening in the cultural conversation or a particularly exciting project that we've been in conversation with an artist for many years about. And now finally they're ready to do it and we got to grab it. And other things that are more evergreen, we're like, oh, maybe we could do that next year. We'll push that a year. But it really is about finding the balance internally in each season. And that's part of the joy of being an artistic director.
Clearly you're steeped in Shakespeare. You studied it at Oxford as a Rhodes Scholar. You taught. I wonder, and Ellen and I have spoke with artistic directors, really around the country during and post-COVID, how audiences are looking for uplifting, something fun, light. And I wonder the continued appeal of Shakespeare. And if you have to program a little differently, knowing where the audience is today.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what would I say about that? That question is so alive for me. I instinctively want to please an audience, and I think Shakespeare did too. There even, you know, the last lines of Twelfth Night or something about we strive to please you every day. And I think somehow in the 20th century, I think we got a little, you know, focused on the idea that striving only to please an audience is pandering to the audience. And Shakespeare never pandered. He was always challenging the audience at the same time as pleasing them and offering them a game in which they had a critical role to play. Um, but I do reject the idea that Shakespeare is kind of eat your vegetables, that it's anti-fun somehow. I mean, I have spent a career trying to dismantle that cultural idea. And every year we get a really brilliant group of artists together in a room and we work together to try and dismantle that idea by putting on a play that is so much fun, that is so compelling, that is so entertaining, that is so rich with the human experience, that people would sit up and want to come back and want to bring their, 10-year-old who's never seen a play before and say, watch this. Um, I'm going on Thursday morning to a seventh grade English class that my friend is teaching, and they're reading the Scottish play. And he said, we've just started, we're on page 4, we've just gotten to the bloody captain scene. We haven't even gotten to fair is foul and foul is fair. We haven't even gotten Mr. Macbeth on stage. And I said, you know what? My favorite speech in the play that I would love to come in and talk to your students about is the messenger speech, the nameless messenger that comes in to warn Lady Macduff right before the murderers come in. It's 9 lines long. It's really, it has a couple of words that might be slightly archaic to the modern ear, but other than that, it's a really straightforward speech, and it's such an incredible human moment. Like, imagine that you're at the dinner table with your 3 kids, as I just was, although I only have 2. Uh, and then a stranger comes to the door and says, "You don't know me, but I know you. And I'm taking my own life into my hands by coming to your door, but something horrible is about to happen. Take your kids and run. Get out of the house and run right away. I'm sorry to frighten you, but the only thing that would be worse than frightening you is not frightening you about because of what's about to happen. I can't stay anymore. Just run. Run. I gotta go." And then they leave. It makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. It's so human. And I think if you get great actors into a room and they can connect to that stuff and connect it through the language, audiences do get it, and they long for it.
Yeah. Yes, because I mean, I think I'm always complaining how Shakespeare is introduced to so many people, right? Of just sit and read this in English class, and you can't comprehend it, if you're not introduced to the humanity of it, to the theatric of it, then it is just like gobbledygook on paper, right? If you have to be taught how to do it. And we did a production of the Scottish play and invited a whole bunch of kids in, and the reactions are amazing. I still remember to this day when Lady Macbeth, after Duncan's dead, and she says, someone's like, "Oh, the king is dead," and he's like, "What, in our house?" And the kids just yell out, "You did it!" They're so in it, and they love it, but they have to experience it in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because too often I think Shakespeare is set up as if it is something apart. It's out there, it's old, and we forget that Shakespeare was about the masses. It was
Yeah.
theater for everyone, not just
Yeah.
the mucky mucks.
That's right. That's exactly right. And I think part of it is about the spaces that we do theater in. Shakespeare wasn't written for a proscenium theater. It was written for an outdoor theater where the audience is all right around the actors, and where the presence of the audience is an undeniable fact of the way the play is unfolding. And then somehow we got this idea that we should put the actors up and far away and turn all the bright lights on them and turn the lights off on the audience. And our theater gets a lot of energy, a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, kind of, from the fact that the audience is right there and the actors are not raised up. They're actually below the audience. The feet of the actors is on the same ground as the feet of the first row of the audience. And the actors keep entering down the aisles and through the vams, and you can see them sweating. You can feel the heat from their body. I mean, that's not something you can get in a big, 1,000-seat proscenium theater.
When you say heat, by the way, intent, take a look at their website. We're not talking, a teepee here. We're talking tent, mega facility, but you're still open air. And we have a Park Playhouse Stage Company in the Capital Region. and it's open. There is no roof, and we have lost shows to rain, sometimes half a season to rain. But in the last 2 summers, and I'm wondering how this has impacted you with the heat and with bad air, air quality having taken a hit because of fires out west. How has that, or hasn't it, impacted your performances, your ability to even go on stage?
It has affected it. And, I mentioned Oregon Shakespeare earlier. They had whole seasons that were lost to smoke, or most of the season. And I think for a while I thought, oh God, I would shake my head and think, oh, it's just so horrible for them. And I didn't ever anticipate that. I just had this cognitive block that that would happen in the Hudson Valley. And of course it would, and it did. And it will happen again, you know. The extremity of the storms that happen, the length and the intensity of the heat waves that we're experiencing. Um, we've adopted environmental sustainability as one of the core values of our theater company, and that's part of the reason why we're so focused on the sustainability of the new theater. Um, it's kind of informed everything that we do at the theater. The way we design the costumes is very focused on, what we call circular design. What can we use that already exists? Um, we're not one of those theaters that build big sets and then put them in the dumpster at the end of the show. I know all this sounds a little bit like, what does that have to do with, with canceling for smoke? But in our own small way, I think we're trying to be thoughtful about how we sit on the land and how we impact the climate and the planet. And we did have a kind of tough moment in the middle of the design process when we had to cancel some shows for smoke. And one of the questions that you just can't answer is like, is open air theater a thing of the past? In 25 years, will we even be able to have open air theater? And I just couldn't accept that idea. Like, we wouldn't be able to play baseball outside, or go fishing, or go water skiing, or go hiking, because we've heated the planet to the point where you can't do these things. I just don't want to live in that world. And so we thought, no, we want this to be an outdoor theater. We want it to be protected from the elements to the extent it can. We don't want to have to cancel a show because it rains. But we do want to be outside. I think there's a long tradition of performing Shakespeare in conversation with nature, and we wanted to be a part of that.
A lot of fans, and I mean
Yeah.
the plug-in whirly kind.
Yeah. I mean, we do have, we give people visors because there was a certain time when the sun would come in at a certain angle and get in people's eyes. We gave people fans during heat waves so they could kind of fan themselves like they were in an Alabama church. Uh, and we're going to extend the season deeper into September, because I think some nights that might have been too cool before will be actually really great times to be outside in the Hudson Valley. Um, and we've canceled more shows. We kind of build into the budget now that we're going to cancel a couple of shows every year, whether it's for heat or smoke or hurricanes. And that's a way of giving ourselves a little breathing room so that we can afford to make the decision on the basis that it should be made, which is, the safety of the company and of the audience. If it's going to be terrible weather, and we don't want to bring people onto the campus and then have to cancel the show.
Now, as we are kind of winding down, I couldn't let this interview go without asking you what your personal favorite Shakespeare is.
Oh God, that is great. I'm really interested in King Lear right now. I'm interested in Hamlet. I know those are kind of conventional choices for the great ones, but another play that I really love that I got to direct at my own theater maybe 5 or 6 years ago is Richard II, which is like the quintessential Shakespearean Shakespeare play. But I think my answer to your question is Measure for Measure, which is the last comedy, like purely generic comedy by genre that Shakespeare wrote in his career, and it's one of the darkest and and it feels like a real turning point in his dramaturgy. And I got to direct that at my own theater several years ago, and I loved that production. And every time I hear that someone's working on Measure for Measure, I get so excited about it. I think that's a really, really skillful, artful play about the body and the spirit, about uh, the need for balance rather than extremity in our politics, in our emotional lives, in our relationships. Um, and even though it's set in Vienna, I feel like Shakespeare was writing quite clearly about the London that was right outside the door of the theater in 1603 when that play was written. I think it's a
Sometimes an artist will set it somewhere else to deflect a little bit of the heat. Or
exactly, exactly. This is Vienna. I wasn't talking about London. It says Vienna. I think that's right. I also think The Matchmaker, the play that I'm getting ready to direct, is very canny in that way too. It's a farce. It's super, super funny, but it's also about commerce and America and uh, it's got a lot on its mind. It's very, very trenchant in its kind of social observation, but it's so funny that it goes down super easy and its critical eye kind of just goes right along with the flow of the play. I can't wait to work on it.
isn't that the deliciousness of theater?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And now I want to say to you guys, I'm so glad to be talking to the two of you from the Capital Region, and I want to say that we were really honored to have Governor Hochul at the groundbreaking for our new theater, and you know, it's a great thing for New York State to have a governor who really is ready to be an advocate for the performing arts. We haven't always had that. That's one of the things that makes New York State so unique. And because I was thrilled to get to meet her when she came to our campus, and she spoke really um, personally about her relationship to the arts and why she thinks it's so important to the state. And so every time I get to talk to somebody from Albany, I share my enthusiasm for our current governor.
And we're not all that far. It's not quite 2 hours or about that, depends where in the capital region you live to get
Yeah.
down to you. And I'm sure there's a decent restaurant or two around, so you can make.
Come on down. Come on down. You can see multiple plays, and there's other great things to do right in our area. I would be remiss if I didn't, mention that there's Storm King Art Center very near us, and Dia Beacon, and there's a great new Italian art museum called Magazzino, and there's a great, music outdoor music venue, Caramore, that's a little south of us in Westchester County. So there's a real kind of cultural thing happening in the Hudson Valley that we're very excited to be a part of.
And where's your home base when you're not there in the summer? You said in your theater?
Uh, my theater, when I said that, I meant to refer to my theater, Hudson Valley Shakespeare. I live here in Cold Spring, and both of those plays I directed at my own theater, Hudson Valley Shakespeare. And occasionally I directed other places too, but Hudson Valley Shakespeare is most certainly my artistic home.
Well, Davis McCallum, Artistic Director at Hudson Valley Shakespeare, thank you for inviting us to your home. And I have a feeling you'll be seeing a fair amount of folks from the 518 make the trip to what really sounds like a wonderful season you have planned. Opening is what day again?
June 6th. And it's a real our theater is not unique, but is somewhat distinguished by the fact that people like to come in groups and they like to have a picnic on the grounds and overlook the river before the show. And so when folks from the 518 come down, I hope that they will bring a really large group of people and a really celebratory picnic and make an outing of it.
You
I
got
say
it.
our listeners, let us know. Benita and I will go and picnic with you down there. Let's get
Start tooting.
going.
Well, thanks so much for your time. Have a great season, and we look forward to checking out some of your the performances. All best. Thank you.
Thank you, Benita. Thank you, Ellen. Thanks, everyone.
And for our listeners, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time. I'm Ellen Cripps.
And I'm Benita Zahn. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.